Okay, good evening, everyone. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Stan Penkin. I'm president of the Pearl District Neighborhood Association. And you'll have to excuse my lighting behind me and my positioning. I am in a rental home in Hilton Head, South Carolina. And I certainly hope that the internet holds up here. So had a little bit of technical difficulties, but hopefully we're good now. So again, welcome everyone. Glad that you're here. This tonight is and it's tonight for me, by the way, it is 7:30 or 8 o'clock here. This is the first of what will be a series of ongoing meetings to learn more about the Safe Rest Village on, I guess it's called North NATO Parkway. And we hope that you have had an opportunity, most of you, to have looked at the website, the Safe Rest Village website, to get some basic information about this Safe Rest Village. And tonight, we want to dig deeper into some questions. We've received a number of questions from the community, and we're going to dig into some of those questions. We don't anticipate tonight that attendees will have an opportunity to comment or ask questions, but there will be many opportunities going forward. So again, we hope to dig into some more significant details. We have with us tonight Commissioner Sharon Myron from County Commissioner. We have City Commissioner Dan Ryan, who has launched this Safe Rest Village initiative. Also on the screen are Dan's, Commissioner Ryan's team, and I'm not going to call everybody out, but you can see who they are. So one of the things we want to mention, there are, I think, many of us who don't understand the roles of the county and the city, and there are distinct roles with relation to the Safe Rest Villages and homelessness in general. And there are some gray areas. So I'm hoping tonight we can get a better understanding of that, as well as a better understanding of what this Safe Rest Village will look like, some of the details and so on. So with that, I want to introduce Commissioner Myron, who's going to have a few words to say, and then Commissioner Ryan will have a few words, and then John Hollister, PDNA board member, who is now the chair of our Safe Rest Village committee. He will moderate a series of questions, and we will take it from there. So again, thank you all for being here. We look forward to this being a productive discussion, productive evening. And again, just remember, this is the beginning of a series of conversations. So with that, Commissioner Myron, please let us hear your thoughts.
Yes. So thank you so much, Stan. And I know we're going to be held to a strict 5-minute time limit, so just stop me. But I'll dive in. I'm Sharon Myron. I am the Multnomah County Commissioner representing District 1, which is all of the county west of the Willamette River, including PDNA, and also inner southeast out to Cesar Chavez. So I love that you asked about what does the city do vis-a-vis the county, because that is so important to understanding maybe some of what we can accomplish and where some of the disconnects happen. The city, I consider this, and Commissioner Ryan can respond, but the city does a lot of the bricks and mortar. So city does infrastructure, business development, zoning, those kinds of things. And I consider the county to be the heart and soul of local government. So we serve as the social safety net. We do human services. We are the local mental health authority. We are the local public health authority. We are the local board of health. And so we provide all those human services, health clinics for people who don't have insurance, for example. And we do a lot of that work. And there's a lot of overlap between the city and county. Unlike the city, the county has districts. So I describe my district. There are 4 districts in Multnomah County. The chair is an at-large position. We have a $2.8 billion budget with $500 million of discretionary funding. And so, and we don't have bureaus, unlike at the city. So we, we have interest area, we pursue policies, but the chair as an executive is a strong executive. The commissioners work on different policy areas, and what abilities is connecting with our district and approving a budget. So personally, I'm an ER doctor. I am also a volunteer with Portland Street Medicine. So I go out to encampments, visiting people who live outside unsheltered, and administer sometimes medical care. A lot of it is related to substance use, but so often it is social services, just getting people water, basic supplies, things to support them in living outside. And my personal priorities are tied to the work that I do on the front line. So these are things like homelessness, behavioral health, which you hear the term behavioral health thrown about maybe, and that is both substance use disorder and mental health, and also public safety. So the county focuses on the intersection of all of those. And so it really, it's really where I connect into this work. And we look at 3 sort of, the strategies for homelessness are sort of a 3-legged stool. And we need to focus on prevention, shelter and safety for people who are living on the streets. And there are thousands and thousands. Estimates are at least 5,000, probably 7,500 people being on our show. And then also permanent housing. So when we allocate our resources, which you've had more than usual, but still limited, we allocate them in those buckets, and we need to figure out that ecosystem of how we can most effectively use our dollars. And that is, homelessness is based on, informed by my work and what I do. It is really, it really is, homelessness is sort of top there. And it does so often include mental health issues and substance use disorder and addiction issues, which I find we don't talk about nearly enough in our public discourse.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And then Commissioner Ryan, a few words from you, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Pearl District Neighborhood Association. I'm Dan Ryan. I'm a member of the City Council, and I've been in office for 16 months. And oh, what a 16 months it has been for all of us. Thank you so much, Dan Penkin, and the entire board of the Pearl District Neighborhood Association for you're just very active and you're making your neighborhood better. But I also know that you are making the city a much better place because of that. I'm really pleased to be here with you, Commissioner Myron. This is a really complex issue, and it goes so far beyond one local government's responsibility. And it was smart of Stan to have both of us here. I support shared responsibility and accountability. And just by us being here together, starts to really demonstrate that statement of hope that we need to lean into more. I'm here to be with you, to stand with you. I really want to fight with you. This journey will be filled with a lot of tension and also hope. I think the commonality we're all going to share tonight is we have a deep love for our city. So we can establish that off the beginning, or you wouldn't be here at a neighborhood association meeting. And we must show that by leaning in and doing something that moves from this current intolerable reality, the current lack of safety on our streets. This was the same motivation that got me to jump into the race 2 years ago. And now I'm just so completely aware of why things are so challenging. I've always been a disruptor. I'm really never satisfied with the status quo, and I'll continue to question and build so we can get this city and county out of the deep ditch that we have dug well over the last decade. At this moment, I also want to remind myself why I chose to dive into public service leadership during what most are calling the most challenging chapter of our city's history. I jumped in because I was noticing the government was just tolerating more intolerable situations, especially in terms of the humanitarian crisis. I also am a homeowner, and I kept experiencing a great distance between the property taxes I was paying, watching them rise, and I was confused why the quality of my life was decreasing. My infrastructure services were going down. So my experience in my hometown was becoming increasingly negative. My point is, I'm still that person today, and that's why my head said yes to being a leader at this time. But more importantly, I had to have a heart motivation. And for me, that was because I had a lot of pain over losing my third oldest brother. I'm the youngest of 8. He was just another lost soul that was untreated for mental health and substance abuse, for behavioral health, as Commissioner Myron said, in a state that, of course, has probably we tend to be at the worst, the bottom, when it comes to behavioral health and mental health services. We're high in those that are untreated with addiction and basically on the bottom of offering treatment services. So yes, my brother was houseless. Yet he was really homeless. He lost his connection to the supportive and loving family and friends. And as much as we tried to intervene, he chose his addiction over real life. And sadly, this type of untreated person is on our streets and at our parks at levels much higher than when my brother passed away over 8 years ago. And this is what connects my heart and my head on this issue. And that's why we're discussing it today. And as Commissioner Myron said, we have so much trouble as elected officials putting words into what we're experiencing. And many times it's all of you that hit us over the head to say, would you just say it like it is? Before I go any further, I'm going to lift up the elected officials who stuck their neck out to be champions for those who are homeless. And I really mean this. I think when you take this on, you instantly are in conflict with so many. And Chair Kafori dove into this over a decade ago, and I respect that. And since I never agree with anyone who does 100%, I mean, 100%, I never agree with everyone. I agree with a lot of what people say. But I just want to say that, yeah, we're having tension and we're having disruptions. And that's exactly what you should expect from all of us as we wrestle with this very challenging situation that the city's in. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we got to do something. And we have to be fluid as we make these adjustments along the way. So let me now pivot to why building an on-ramp service, moving people from the streets to civility, safe rest villages, restorative villages, if you will, gives us the innovation centers we need to build that data-driven culture that's also necessary. First of all, please know safe rest villages are not camps. They are a private setting, a safe setting, a managed setting, a restorative setting, to be rigorous about assessing those who reside in the village for a 6 to 9 month period of time, with a hope of moving them into the right type of permanent housing. This is a missing program in the continuum. That I see from the streets to home ownership is the big continuum. And government programs are really weak on the edges of this continuum. These villages are being sited across the city. We've done a very good job with our distribution of geographic diversity. And again, these will not be eyesores. They won't be unsanctioned camping. They won't be even like the emergency camps that were set up at the beginning of COVID, which at this moment we are transforming those to restorative village settings. A showcase of this would be if you go up to Northeast Weiler, just past the Rose Quarter, you can see the village that used to be down in Water Avenue and how it's been relocated, and it's a much better setting. And the provider there has actually had some results since then of moving more people in to permanent housing. We have passed the investments in coordination with the county to have the tools to actually enforce the good neighbor agreements, unlike the past, which are really necessary to build trust with good people like you. And I have hope that those villages will have a much better opportunity to build resilience for those inside and not be triggered when they leave the village to go do errands, go to work, etc. So now is the time to take action, to innovate, to learn as we build. Your engagement will be part of this evolution. I look forward to answering questions and do my best to serve all of you in this role. Thanks again for having me here tonight.
So thank you, Commissioner. So now I'm going to turn it over to John Hollister. And we have some prepared questions, and hopefully we'll get into some other questions as well. So John, I'm going to ask you to please take it away.
Great. Thank you, Stan. And thank you, Commissioner Ryan and Commissioner Myron for joining us tonight. These questions, and I really want to thank the community, because the questions that I'm going to ask are a culmination of all the input I got from all of you, and not only in our community, but in various communities of throughout the city have contributed to the questions that I'm going to ask. And so the first question is for Commissioner Ryan. In a short summary, what are Mayor Wheeler's emergency declarations, and what effect will they have on the SRVs and the ability for them to develop?
Thank you, John. So there have been 3 emergencies, if you've been counting, over the last, I think, 4 weeks. The first one was a response to a report that was done by Street Trust that made it really clear that many of the deaths by pedestrians on our streets are actually houseless people who are living near fast-moving vehicles, near freeways and such. So the first one was to say that we need to have a buffer zone and not allow people to camp near freeways where big trucks and cars are driving at very fast speeds, and an impact would kill somebody. It's pretty basic. And so that was the first one. The second one was actually one that was personally quite satisfactory to me. A lot of satisfaction when he told me that this was coming up. And that was to allow this person, this commissioner who has the dotted line with the joint office for homelessness, to have the authority to site these safe rest villages on Bureau land. The good news about that is we were already working with many, but we had about 3 that were so ready to go for the last 6 months. And this emergency declaration gave us the agency, if you will, to move those forward. And so we made 4 announcements, including this one. This is the one private entity, by the way, but the other ones were all City Bureau property. That was the second one. The third one is by far the most complex, and also one that we have a lived experience with in our office. And that is when you work at the City of Portland and you're in a commissioner role and you're trying to enact something that's bigger than the 3 or 4 bureau assignments you have, which is often the case when it's something complex. How do you herd all the cats or the bureaus to get them aligned so that there isn't going to be one bureau or another bureau that just suddenly stops the action? So to put it into terms that you might understand, when our office was listening to the neighbors around Laurelhurst Park, being quite upset with not having access to their park and not feeling safe near that park, we needed to do a park cleanup, but we wanted to make sure that it was coordinated with the navigation team, the outreach workers, so that we'd offer services. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't just one bureau coming in, say police, to clean it up with the impact reduction team, but the transportation was on board, the parks was on board. So we had to get every office to sign up on it. It took about 3 weeks of coordination, and it took a lot of persistence to get everybody on the same page. And we did pull it off, in spite of a lot of people saying we wouldn't be able to pull that off. And it was implemented because of a lot of relational skill sets that my team has, and we were able to execute the plan. So we gave a blueprint to the mayor to say that you need to have a system set up like this, where you have the agency to actually at whim coordinate with all bureaus and gives one person that's driving the authority to implement the plan. So basically what we're doing is we're breaking down the silos that often prevent there from being coordinated action. And I think you're going to see much more efficient results, kind of like we did some mini charter review upgrades with that ordinance. So those are just a sample of the 3, and all of them bode well for what we're talking about tonight. I think they complement each other.
So would you say, and Commissioner Myron used this term, would you can say in this particular case, this actually allows Mayor Wheeler to act as a strong mayor?
Yeah, it would allow the mayor and his authority, especially overseeing community safety, to have more tools to actually move something without a certain bureau saying, I object to that. And so absolutely. And I think it's very responsive to where we are as a city right now, because again, we're dealing with some just intolerable situations on our streets, and we need to see some swifter action. And we have to, basically it's to stop this and to do this.
Yeah.
That was a great visual.
Yeah.
I mean, if I must say so myself, I've never done this part. I realize I'm looking like I'm trying to land a plane, but maybe that's the metaphor. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Dan. Thank you,
If those of you could see, Sharon and I were doing some nonverbal teaching.
Yeah. Next question is, why did Bybee Lake Hope Center, Alan Evans, walk away from managing the SRVs? And kind of to the point is, if he doesn't support the SRV concept, how and why should we?
So first of all, Alan should be here to answer that question, and he's not. So I'm not going to pretend I can answer for Alan. What I can say is that I personally have a great relationship with Alan. Our office has a very solid relationship with Alan and some of his members of his staff at Helping Hands. And we are in communication with Alan and Helping Hands. And I have to leave it at that. But if you know one thing about me, I never take no for an answer when it's the right thing to do is to keep moving forward. So we need to keep building bridges with providers who are not part of the status quo in the provider network. And it's not just Helping Hands, there are others who have never been at the government trough, if you will. And so we have to expand our provider network. And we definitely need providers that also stretch us to go beyond low barrier. And to really, as somebody that understands recovery well myself, it's very important that we offer more services that really guide people towards medium and high barrier, so that they have that opportunity to really build their resilience in a safe setting.
Thank you. And Commissioner Myron, I wanted to kind of give you a chance to to talk about this, because I heard in one of Alan Evans' talk was he mentioned that there was tremendous frustration with I guess it's to the point that Commissioner Ryan said, is the finger pointing and not being able to get people to work together to get something done. And that's, I'm just putting words in his mouth that's some of the reasons he backed away.
Yeah, I so appreciate that, and I too have a great working relationship with Alan, and and he sees it. I've spoken with so many providers who see that. I like the air traffic controller analogy that Commissioner Ryan made, and it's like there is so much pointing in the other direction of, oh, well, it's the city that does, XYZ. Oh, but it's the county that does XYZ. And so meanwhile, nothing gets done. And what are we doing to bridge those gaps? And I connect with Commissioner Ryan. I can connect with the city commissioners, because until we do that, until we acknowledge sort of our joint responsibility, we will continue to do this. I think that one of the frustrations that Alan mentioned to me specifically was regarding the requirement that, frankly, I was not aware of, that contractors for different projects for the Joint Office of Homeless Services basically ascribe to the Housing First sort of concept in signing on to do whatever work it is that they do within the continuum. And I question that. I am so grateful to Alan Evans to have raised that so that we can actually pull it out and analyze it and say, wait, what is this about? What does this mean? How does this impact the services that we are providing to our community? Because Housing First as a model, whole other conversation, but as a model that works for a lot of people, it is a good model. It does not work for everyone, and it certainly is challenging, mostly for the people who are most impacted and marginalized, and the people that we see on our streets, frankly. And so, how are we addressing this when our contracts are saying you have to subscribe to this model? So I think that there are a lot of things to look at here. But in looking at this, the key is collaboration between the city and county, and being able to have the kind of relationships where we can have these conversations, frankly, openly, transparently, have the dialogue, have some of the tension, and maybe not always agreement, but to have the conversation so that we can arrive at a better place. And yeah, Alan has.
So with one step further on that, Commissioner Myron, the Bybee Lakes has 11 very successful facilities, and they have a very successful model. And so he's pointing something out that doesn't make sense. Why don't we just take it out and do what he says and get this thing going?
Oh, what a concept, to just do it, to coin a phrase. That's I'm an emergency room doctor. So that is sort of how I look at all of the issues that we're facing. And, I recognize coming into this office, it would be challenging that government doesn't work necessarily like an ER or emergent crisis response system. But we need to be figuring out why it is that if that's an issue that we're not changing it. And this ties into, it's a bit convoluted, but this ties into that dynamic that goes to the structure of the county vis-a-vis the structure of the city and the joint office of homeless services and who does what. At the county, the chair is a very strong executive. The chair makes the decisions about the joint office of homeless services and those contracts and what they include. And the joint office is overseen by the county. It's a county department. A lot of people don't recognize that. And I think that's one of the issues that comes into play in a lot of the work we're doing on homelessness. But these decisions, like I said, I was not aware of this even until last week or whenever this showed up in the papers. Now that I'm aware of it, I can take it on and ask the questions. But until then, it's a decision the chair has made, and now we've gotten to this point, and we need to be questioned.
Yeah. Okay. And that was my next question. What is the there's got to be someone that can sign off on this and make it be different. And so you just said that. And so that's the thing. And hopefully that can be done, because, it's really, selfishly, I want Alan Evans to run these things, and because he's done it really, really well. So that's a good thing. And for us as a community on how we can put pressure on the right places to be able to get these, from a layman's standpoint, these seemingly ridiculous policies to not be there anymore. So thank you for that. And thank you for your transparency on that.
Let me just follow up a little bit with that. I think I agree that we want them into the mix, and there are other great organizations that have stepped up to do these alternative, I don't like even using the word shelters anymore, but alternative villages. And, we have Do Good, which has stepped in, and they're doing great work with the transformation of one of the villages that was put up, emergency shelters that was put up on Water Avenue, and is now the one up above Weidler. And so I think it's important that we just allow the room to be smart. And I love the day when we have helping hands in the same room with 4 other providers, and they're actually learning from each other. And they're actually doing that type of, having some good tension in the room and problem solving some challenging situations. And so I think that's what we have to move towards. There's no one way to do this. It's the most complex topic. And so it's funny that we would think that you have to have a purity of signing on to a contract with one point of view. And it's bananas that we even have the conversation about, is it shelters or is it permanent housing? Thanks for laughing, Commissioner Myron. It's like, Of course we want housing, and there are people who are houseless that are on our streets. There are people that wouldn't take that much intervention to give them the keys and to be successful in a single occupancy unit. But boy, when you have those dual diagnoses or triple diagnoses that are untreated, and you give someone the keys to move into a single occupancy unit, doesn't go well. And so we have to get honest about the different types of people on our streets and different strategies to house them and to do service work for them so they can build their resilience. And we have to get out of denial that there's one way to do that.
Yeah, and I've heard you mention it's not one way or the other. It's not an or, it's an and. And
it's that basic, exactly.
Yeah. Move on to the next question, and these are big ones to the neighborhood. I've heard you say that, you know, the city and the different neighborhoods need to share the burden of the homelessness and have them in the area. But they're basic things like, here's the question is, how will safety and security be ensured and provided for both residents and neighbors, both inside and outside of the SRV?
That's fair. Thank you. So let me just do a backdrop. So one thing that government's done over the last X amount of years is close things down. We're good at shaming and we're good at shutting things down. So we shamed Damage Hospital and then we shut it down. But did we offer a new solution for a mental health, high security hospital? We found that there were major safety concerns at sobering stations, and it was very unsafe for staff. And so those were shut down. And then did we offer any solution, a new sobering station that would have to be radically different to be adaptable to the fact that we have very challenging hard drugs on our streets that are easily to access, that are in the open air drug market that many of you see when you walk around certain neighborhoods, and are causing psychotic and aggressive behavior that we've never seen before. So I believe them that those were dangerous. But the fact is we have to face this reality. And so now what you experience on the streets are those types of people that should be getting government services with a lot of extreme trauma-informed and just really high-end services. And definitely some of them need security. That's the type of person increasingly that's become on our streets. And so that's not fair to the people. And that's part of my statement, that we've asked people who live in Portland to tolerate the intolerable, who live in our entire state to tolerate the intolerable. So like the gubernatorial campaign, this has got to be a top issue of how we can focus on improving our behavioral health systems and not be last in the country. So I just wanted to give that backdrop. So you have that, and then you had neighborhood agreements that were agreed upon in theory, but there were no investments or coordination between the city and the county on how to actually implement them. And so the backdrop on this is that we did make some investments not too long ago in the fall bump with the county, so that it's in addition to the provider, there are navigation team support systems that are being built as we speak. So it's going from staff, you're going to tell me I'm not absolutely right on this. So it's going from 7 to what, 45? Jake, what's the number? It's a big increase.
45.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I remembered a number. And so that's important because the navigation team, outreach people, are the ones that are out getting to know houseless people by name. Half of those are going to be assigned to the Safe Rest villages and the villages that were formerly known as C3PO, like the one that moved up to Weidler. So we actually are staffed finally to give the providers some assistance. And the third part of that is the impact reduction team that is at the city, who does the cleanups around the city, who obviously didn't work as much during COVID, which is why we got into such a pile, if you will, and we're cleaning that up. But the fact is, that's the trilogy, is those three: the provider, the NAV team people, and impact reduction will have consistent meetings in that learning community to monitor safety and concerns to keep the buffer zones intact. And of course, we will have to have a member of community safety in those meetings as well, so that we can all just be aligned. Again, stop this and let's have alignment in our meetings so that we know what role is what, and that we can actually start building some trust with people that live in this city, that when government puts together a good neighbor agreement, we actually fulfill it. And I realize we're in a trust building phase of that development. And I think at least finally we have some tools in place that we can implement it. And I know as I try to seek having a real term in office, it's going to be one of by far the most important thing for me to focus on is making sure the implementation of those is actually followed through.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Myron, I think we're going to be able to this next question we'll be able to dive in with that whole concept on the county role versus the city role on these various things. But I want to just go a little deeper on this one is with being on this committee, this SRB committee, I've been walking past the navigation center, trying to do it a couple times a day, and seeing the tent number go up and down. And today was quite disturbing as I heard from a Waterfront Pearl resident that they saw somebody defecating on the Winkler property. I didn't see that, but when I went by, I saw piles of toilet paper that showed me the end part of that process, and those are the kinds of things that I don't think it's fair for the neighborhood to be sharing that burden. That I want to share the people, but I don't want to share the blight.
I'm not sure if that was directed specifically to one of us or.
No, it wasn't. It was. I don't care who solves it.
I think that right. No, exactly. I mean, that's the key is like, I don't care who solves it either. And I care in the sense that it doesn't matter. We need to be doing it together. And it is just constantly shocking to me that we're not doing this. And I do work with Commissioner Ryan, and I do work with some of the individual commissioners to work on this, but some of it is the structure of our governments, but some of it is like, how are we not addressing this? And I just want to go back to some of, the security asking, I like how Commissioner Ryan stated it, asking people to tolerate the intolerable. I go out and provide direct service. I'm not just kind of sitting in my office and saying, oh, what would be a good idea about this? How should I think about this? Let me consult with XYZ. I go out and I provide medical care to people living in camps. I provide services to people living in encampments and living outside. I speak with, at this point, it's been hundreds of them, and the actual people along with the community. And the question, is what are we doing? What is this about? I appreciate there was a question of what I feel is necessary is, and that's kind of missing from the equation, is the overall coordinator of the person. There was, looks like Medina wrote a question in the chat. It's like, who is the person who's accountable for this so that we actually can make a decision and have that stick and say, if it's not happening, why and what can we do to change it? And I ran for this office in the Multnomah County Commission because I thought like, oh, I'll get in there and then I can sort of tweak and figure it out. And I still am having some of these same questions and conversations, which is shocking to me. And we need to be just taking responsibility, working together and saying, it's both of us. We need the person in the Joint Office of Homeless Services is what I think, the person in the Joint Office of Homeless Services responsible for outdoor shelters, who was saying what needs to happen, who is responsible for it, and holding people to account. And we're not doing that. So
Yeah. I want to thank you, Commissioner Myron. A couple things. One is, it is all our responsibility to be open to solving this challenge with some new innovation. It is government's responsibility to make sure the Good Neighbor Agreement is fulfilled. I want you to know a few things about the Safe Rest Villages, which I didn't have a chance to explain in detail. And that is that we'll have shelter operators on site 24/7. It won't be like what we had when the emergency camps went up at the beginning of COVID. They won't be self-governed. It will be managed 24/7. It will be by referral only. There'll be no drop-in services. When we say it's a restorative environment with a lovely fence that's painted so that there's privacy, it's so that they can actually build their resilience, because we're going to be measuring their resilience over a 6 to 9 month period of time. And under mental health, behavioral health, workforce as another category. And the third is how they play well with others within the village. If those all rise up, according to the case manager, then they'll be able to move into permanent housing or whatever is next. And I think that's really important. And in terms of numbers, some people say it's a drop in the bucket, but we got to start dropping something in the bucket. And the truth is, these will be able to supply at any given time about 500 in capacity. And since there's a rotation, there'll be more like 625-ish people a year being served. And if you look at that over a 3-year period of time, you're getting closer to 2,000. So it really does do something to the system. But I just want to let everybody know that they will be fully fenced. And it's a big difference between a real lovely fence and a cyclone fence. And it's really different than what you experienced on Northeast Broadway, where it was also more self-governed and there wasn't 24/7 management. So we really have learned, I think, from these past mistakes, and we need to continue to learn from them. And I really appreciate all your patience and that you've been suffering from tolerating the intolerable. And we just got to keep being humbled by the mistakes that have been made over the last 10 years and learn from them, and then do it dramatically different going forward. And the investments we've put in forth, the commitment that we have from elected officials such as Commissioner Myron, I know that we're going to keep moving forward with better results than we have in the past.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us to our next question, which, and I want to be able to say this with all respect and things like that, but so I got a little bit to read, and then it gets to the question is, a wise man once said, "Your actions speak so loudly, I cannot hear your words." Elected officials and local governments' track record on living up to commitments made in the Good Neighbor Agreements is very bad. It would be an F on a report card. The 4 mainless homeless residential facilities in Old Town and Pearl District all have multiple trash and safety Good Neighbor Agreement violations. Bud Clark Commons, the Greyhound Station, the C3PO camp, and the Navigation Center. I believe with a well-constructed plan, all of these facilities could be Good Neighbor Agreement compliant with a reasonable amount of time. And if that happens, we don't have a lot of the people complaining. We have a good number of people who will feel much more comfortable. And with that, and Sharon, you kind of said this, is we will work with you, but what government entity will take point and work with a select group of neighbors and businesses and residents to rectify the ongoing issues at the 4 existing sites mentioned before? Because if we do that, until we do that, how can we support it? Because it's just a mess.
I look to, so I agree. I can't, there is nothing that you've said that I disagree with. And I just watch, and in preparation and attempting to prepare for this conversation this evening, I did reach out to to Mark Jolin from the Joint Office of Homeless Services and the chair's office. And it is I don't know what the plan is. I go to Vancouver. I went to Vancouver to visit there. They have an equivalent, like a very small, it's a smaller village model. They also have a safe park site, which is amazing. And they have made it work so effectively. They have buffer zones that are enforced. They have the people inside the villages, they don't have to have plumbing, they don't have to have all these things. They have porta potties, they have the very basics, and it has worked, and people are transitioned to permanent housing. I've advocated for sort of scattering these all over the city. I think there's ways we can do this more effectively, more cost effectively, quickly, at scale, that address the 7,000 people living outside rather than, a few hundred at a time. I agree we need to do, whatever we can, but I also feel we can do more. We need this sort of ecosystem, and there's something that they have accomplished in Vancouver. They've done in other places that I feel we need to be doing here in our region, in Portland, in Multnomah County. And I don't know what it is, especially given that we can work together to be doing this. But that difference between what we're doing at the city, what we're doing at the county, our structures of government, I don't know where that's lost. There's opportunity.
Yeah, let me jump in. So Commissioner Myron is right that I've been in office for 16 months. I've seen a lot, and all I can do, you know what you want by what you do. So yes, actions do speak louder than words. I agree with that. And the actions that we've taken, our team, since the mayor handed us the outdoor shelters, is that we're improving them, and we're transforming them. We were aware that the Good Neighbor agreements didn't have any resources around them, the prior ones, which is why we passed legislation in budgets that enhance the systems that you need, which are the navigation team, the outreach team, and also making sure the shelters the villages are 24/7 staffed with management. And then the third, of course, is that we have bigger increases in the impact reduction team at the city to do the cleanup. So we had Good Neighbor agreements that weren't funded. So of course there was nothing that was pleasing anyone the last decade, because they were just in paper. So I'd like to say that in my rookie season, I learned that. And so I made sure that when we were passing these, that we actually we were getting resources in to actually be able to implement the Good Neighbor agreements. And I do think also the emergency orders by the mayor is going to make that more nimble and way more and we're going to have a much better chance to succeed, because we'll have less herding of cats between the silos and less of this because of these Good Neighbor agreements. And it's also why I've had tough conversations with some on the council about the importance of the buffer zone. And yes, I think they're important for everyone that's housed, but they're so important for the people that are going to be in the villages. When you are on like day 4 of recovery, the last thing you need is to go out of the village and be triggered by people that are camping outside of the village or that are partaking in your drug of choice. And so we need these buffer zones so that we can actually build the resiliency and have more success in the villages so people can move on to permanent housing. So we're very clear that these buffer zones are critical for us to have success with our homeless population, so they could actually, again, find their heart. And so really this all comes down to the city and the county collectively have been great at being enablers over the last decade. And that's what's got to stop. And so that's why we have to keep speaking truth to power about the reality of some that are currently on our streets that are causing this very uncomfortable and unsafe conditions. And so all of this needs to come together with action. And so all I can do is say that we have the resources, we're doing the communication meeting, the team that I'm with today reminds me of that those meetings are in place and that the investments are being actualized. And so I'm actually feeling really confident that we can finally start proving that what we put on paper, we can actually back up with action.
And I think what you said, one thing there that I've had a conversations with a lot of people is it's not a money issue. There is money and we can fund it, and but to fund it. And I don't need the provider of a show of a camp or of a village. I don't need the provider of the village to do security outside. Contract it with somebody else. I don't need them to go pick up all the trash. Contract it with someone else. So that
But they need to have communication with all of those people. So they can't be like, that's not my job.
yes,
It's more like this, like we have a relationship with all of those entities that are part of the system that you mentioned. And that's why the convenings of those teams have to be frequent, because we're going to learn a lot and there's going to be some mistakes, because that's what happens when you're innovating, and we have to keep learning from those.
And to this point, and I appreciate both of you being candid on the fact that
We're building something
that we don't know who the where the answer is, but there is an answer. And I just from the cleaning up these existed places and the outside blight, there is an answer. And and part of a group of people, we want to be able to work with the both of you to find this resource and actually get it done. And because I respect you, Commissioner Ryan, but you saying right now, oh yeah, but now we really
well, because I'm telling you the truth, John, like we didn't have those resources.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a 24/7 provider in communication with navigation team members of this magnitude, nor did you have good neighbor agreements that incentivize that with these resources. So actually, I am telling you that we do have a plan. There is a plan. And the plan was voted on last fall so that we have these resources. So I think it's exciting that we get to finally implement something that's actually resourced, and that it's in collaboration with the city and the county. So there's definitely more eyes wide open and role clarity than I think that we've had in the past.
And I like the fact that the C3PO is being managed by your group now, that the actual funded services can show there. Because the day that I see no tents around that camp in Old Town will be a day that I say, oh, okay, I see what he's talking about. And I'm not saying it's easy, but
if this was easy, it would have been done a long time ago. And what all I heard from all of you in my first 6 months in office was that the navigation center was a total success, that the advisory team even stopped meeting because there were no issues. So I will suggest that we never allow an advisory group to stop meeting, but that we really keep all of you as a part of it. So when I say that it's a shared responsibility, we're going to need those same critical voices, and that's not a bad word, to be a part of the system. And just because things are going well, we just need to keep peeling the onion and figure out how they can be even better. And so we can never let up, is my point. Yeah, so I was, and by the way, I was down there this morning. I saw a total of 3 tents nearby. Yep. And it was really helpful to go look at the space. It's a big space. I got to say, I came from Peninsula Crossing, which is in North Portland, where it was really hard to stomach what I experienced and to not be in my feelings the rest of the day from spending an hour and a half there. Thank God there were some goats in the middle of it, which kind of provides some levity, but this is really awful throughout the city. And we just have to start taking action. And the business as usual, the status quo of thinking everyone's going to magically go from these conditions into an apartment, and everything's going to be great, is what we're questioning, because we can't. So if we add 3,000 more people into housing, what good is that if we added 5,000 new people onto the streets? Yeah, so we've got to start going towards a positive net gain.
Yeah, and to the point, there were 3 tents, and so it's the way I look at it. It compared to the other areas, it's very, very a small number. But my thought on that is, if we can't fix the 3 tent area, and keep that, then I'll call this a 1.5 out of 10 problem. If we can't fix the 1.5 problem, how can we fix the 7 or 8 problem? And so the same types of things, the same type of processes, the building back this the advisory board to be able to get it, because there should be 0 tenths, 0 tenths, 0 wads of toilet paper after someone has relieved themselves. And so that's what I want to strive for. And just know we have a committed group of people that want to work with you, but we need to find these people, we need to find these resources, and we need to do it rather than and put money towards it and get committed people like yourselves to make it happen, not talk about it.
Well, I want to make sure that you all know that Charity Montez is here along with Jake and Brian and Michelle, who's the construction manager of these sites. And just know that we will be accessible throughout this journey. And as we announce the provider, that will be helpful as well. So I like that Stan led the meeting off by saying this is a first conversation, and we look forward to many more. We're in this together, and I hear your concerns, and I just know that we can deliver a much better follow-up on a good neighbor agreement than we've experienced in the past.
Yeah, and I'm just looking forward to the existing ones for us to be able to step up our effort on those. And that will be the best demonstration tool for us to believe that the one on the Safe Rest Villages will be successful as well.
Thanks.
Yeah. Sharon, anything you have to say at the end to kind of wrap things up?
Yeah, 3 minutes left, so we need to wrap it up now. So Commissioner Myron, yeah, any last words from you?
I absolutely, I will be here continuing to meet with you and talk to you, engage with you. The county mode is a very, it is directed by the executive. There is not much insight into the process from county commissioners, which is extremely frustrating. But I continue to push and work with the city folks who actually do collaborate. And it's not, I just see Betsy Granger, it's not reassuring. It is not reassuring. I don't mean to reassure you. I'm sorry. I mean to speak truth, but not necessarily reassure. But this is part of the problem. And we need to be addressing it head on. And like I said, I'm an ER doctor. I'm used to getting things done and addressing emergencies and crises and triaging. That is not the way of local government right now. I can speak for the county. That's where I am. And that's the approach we do need to be addressing these things. So I have put my email in the chat. I welcome your questions, continuing this conversation, having further engagement. Commissioner Ryan is a true partner, and we are able to have these conversations. I envision a bigger ecosystem of shelters that actually meets the scale of the demand that's out there. Instead of talking tens and hundreds, talking thousands is what we need to be doing. There are things we can do. I do have hope about this, which is the only reason I can continue in this office, but it's a challenge right now. And so I just appreciate your speaking the truth and raising these issues to us so that we have that awareness and are able to take that and do our best to respond. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening.
Well, thank you, commissioners. This again, this will be overwhelmed. Commissioner, go ahead, Commissioner.
I just want to say that, one person is never going to do this alone, ever. And so we're committed to working with you, period. Obviously, I think I've proven in my first 16 months, I can take a punch and get right back up and learn from it and keep learning from you. And that's what we have to keep doing. And we've made some really bad decisions over the last decade in this city, and we have to start undoing them, and we have to start building. And we're reconstructing at this time. As a team, we're reconstructing some of the ills of the past. And we will keep doing that. We will keep partnering with the rest of the people on city council and with our partners at the county. And we will be clear about road clarity, but most importantly, we're going to keep listening to you. Even if you're not happy, that's great, because we need that kind of feedback so we can keep moving forward. And we're going to get this right. And I just want to say thanks to my team who's working many, many extra hours to make sure that we get these built and that we do it with transparency. So thanks for having us here tonight. I do look forward to more conversations with all of you.
Yes, so Commissioner Ryan, I think you know we've had conversations that I believe that government cannot do it alone. We need government and communities and others across our city working together. But there are two words that stick in my mind from this conversation. One is accountability, that there has to be accountability where there is a Safe Rest Village. And number two, or one or two, whichever way you want to put it, trust. And right now, there's very little trust that our government will fulfill its obligations and be accountable. And that's what needs to be built between neighborhoods and our leaders. And I hope we can move in that direction. Again, this is the beginning of that conversation. And I know there are many people out there in the audience who have a lot of grave concerns, and rightfully so. So we will continue this conversation. Hopefully we can build that trust and be sure that there will be accountability, so that if there is a Safe Rest Village on North Nato Parkway, that everybody can feel it will work properly and serve everyone. So with that, thank you again for being here. Thank you, John, for moderating the questions. And we're going to sign off. And for those, we will be at 6:15, we're going into our regular board meeting. And I hope we can make it a quick one, everyone, hopefully. So we're going to sign out and we're going to sign back in, whoever's attending our regular board meeting at 6:15. With that, again, thanks everyone for being here. To be continued. Everyone, have a good night.